cycle of replacing these, and the market we're in right now is just
constant payment cycle.
possibly, on this one, I don't know if we recommend lease or buying outright. This is probably a 5-year vehicle.
Yes. Circling back on previous conversation with me being here with you, council, is just in terms of fleet management, one of the goals is if we operate newer, safer vehicles, it does reduce the operating expenses on them because you are doing less maintenance and the fuel degradation on the vehicle itself. So yes, you have a constant payment, but ultimately operating newer, safer vehicles and taking advantage of selling them at a shorter window, you're essentially driving down your fleet budget because you have more equity in the vehicles as opposed to selling them at 10 to 20 years, which is very typical in the government space for $500 to $1,000. So we've missed, at that point, you miss that window of equity that helps to drive down the budget on a operating, on an operating side. Now, I will say with service body vehicles specific to this one, this is another mixed bag. We have clients that will pay just cash for the service body itself because it's a $10,000 piece of equipment once you add in all of your decals and everything. And that way they're not financing a piece of equipment that ultimately does not add value to the vehicle. It's there because it has a necessary evil to serve a purpose, which is carry equipment and do a job. The chassis and the body of the vehicle itself, the cab, that actually has a value in itself of, it has a dollar amount and it serves a purpose. And that we see people finance all the time.
Especially this one, Susan, I agree with you. Purchase this one.
You got a motion?
I'll make a motion to purchase the 2500 Chevy PU for the sewer department, the amount not to exceed $41,448.98, with when paid off with a residual value of $1. So stay within the price fleet.
A motion by Mr. Doyle. And a second by Ms. Clark. All in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed.
Thank you. That concludes vehicle purchasing for today.
Hold on a second, Enterprise. Let's talk about these Teslas. They got pushed off again. I figure you have Elon Musk Air, and you could help out since it's a safety vehicle.
I texted them this morning.
Did
No,
you?
but the reality is the chip shortage is why the push-offs continue to happen with all manufacturers. The orders have been placed, so they are in the order banks. The hope, and Tesla's probably, I would say, been more promising than most. And I think it's because they have so many chips, so they're finding unique ways to produce the vehicles. So I guess the question that you're wondering is at delivery, what time frame we're looking at those coming in? Unknown. I would hope before December, but it is likely, as we're hearing from manufacturers, that early spring to beginning of summer is when we're looking at vehicles coming in.
Would you have to put one of those old vehicles back in service if we have,
Already did.
if we have another problem?
Already
If you're saying summer, where does that put you? If we can't get another car till summer,
It's ugly. Julie and I were talking about it. I don't want to overstep the budget process, but if we're looking at hiring 2 people and replacing 3 cars next year, that's 5 cars next year. Should we bring that in front of the council to try to pull that trigger on that now? Or should we wait for the budget to be done? I mean, I don't know the answer to that. It's a real scenario. I don't know where to go with it. I told her we would just wait till next meeting and kind of see where that went. Because I don't want to buy cars that we don't need.
right?
And I don't want Enterprise to end up with a car that they had thought they had sold and didn't, and now they don't.
The
So.
2 we ordered though, we need those cars.
But we need those cars. We need those.
So as he makes it next summer. So,
And that's conservative. I just don't want to make a guarantee or state a date and then the vehicle doesn't arrive and.
My wife was ordered in June and it's supposed to be here in mid-September.
okay.
If we ordered these in I don't know when we ordered them, August, July, somewhere around there. maybe November.
Okay. Yeah.
But there goes the ones for next year. I mean, that puts them out at midsummer. You know, if we order them first of the year,
I would
so
say,
you order them in November and December, and then, you know, because we're just talking about Teslas, we're talking about trucks too. There are 2 trucks on the agenda for next year that are replacements.
Have we looked at
I'm
any
open for
electric
anything.
options on that?
Either anything.
on trucks,
Well, it's a really ugly one that you guys will never
No,
approve.
there's Rivian and some
so,
other models that are.
F-150.
so to speak to that, there's not enough data that we've collected to really give a metric on how effective those will be for the proposed applications. We are hopeful because we want to be able to facilitate for all clients that are interested in going to an EV type fleet for green initiatives and such. But as they're so new to the market, there's just not enough data on those vehicles. As we import them and more clients start to order, that's where we're collecting that internally, but we're also relying on external sources to corroborate our recommendations to clients. But it's similar, you would probably see a 5-year cycle, just like we're recommending on Teslas because of that residual value, and then ultimately operating newer, safer vehicles with features that are going to be in the newer vehicle. To speak to the concern of the 5 vehicles that he would be needing to acquire going into next year, what a lot of clients are currently doing, both in the commercial and government space, is they're actually over ordering for maybe what their needs are, simply because we'll find a home for the vehicle. Enterprise buys over 1.2 million vehicles a year. So if a client says, hey, I'm not going to take delivery on this, and there was never a registration, we don't have to sell it as a used vehicle, and the client doesn't take a hit for it. Because ultimately you don't pay until you've made acceptance and the vehicle has delivered. So you don't have a payment at all until that vehicle actually drops and is turnkey ready to go to you.
So if we wanted to order this year to just get in line,
Yeah.
we really don't have.
We don't have money in the game yet.
And we will
But it's a
work,
commitment that we might,
Yeah.
right?
But
But,
there's no penalty if
but
we
there's
don't.
no penalty if we don't because we're in this fleet management system now.
That's
So it really isn't a budget issue. It's really just a ordering.
Well, I didn't want to do that to you guys. I put in the budget that I wanted to hire 2 guys. We haven't had the discussion yet. You haven't approved that yet. I'm not going to come in behind you and say, can we order them cars for them guys? I didn't want to do that. So
We're saying, we'll get through this.
No, I wanted to hear it.
Well, that's something to consider.
It is.
Todd, talk to Julie, and maybe we can consider if it looks like it's getting worse, you know, or we're gonna. My just concern was if we have a couple vehicles go down, how bad is it right now? If we have enough.
luckily we have some bad ones and we have some good ones. So we'll just be sharing the good ones. That's just kind of how that'll go. We'll make it work.
Right.
The citizens are not going to be suffering from it, but it's not pretty when that happens.
No accidents.
Oh,
No mechanical problems. I appreciate it. I didn't mean to keep you up there long. I just
it's totally fine.
want to get you.
If you guys need me to come back at any time, feel free to let Julie know, and I'll be happy to be here.
Thank you very much.
The next item, Matt Smith is here with Strand, and we'd like to discuss our 2 Cent Road, various lift station upgrades. This project has been in the works for some time. It's part of our bond that Baker Tilly is working on, and we'd like to start on the design for this project. We've got some commercial development in the area that's probably going to push this a little bit further along, but also will be they will participate in these upgrades also. So we would like to start on the design. We're going to probably treat this like we've done other projects where Strand will do the lift station improvements and the main design, and then we'll hire a local firm to do the survey and easement acquisition as needed, and I'll come back to you for that at the next meeting, most likely. So Matt is here to kind of give a high-level overview of what this project entails. It's got a lot of lift stations and moving parts.
Yeah, Matt Smith with Strand Associates. So if you look at the sewer system on the east and kind of generally southeast side of town, it's essentially daisy chained together. So you have a number of lift stations that pump from lift station to lift station. Some of those lift stations, at least 2 of them, are in poor condition and either need are not in a good position, such that as you keep adding flow to the system, you're going to put more pressure on those 2 lift stations. They also ultimately pump to a 14-inch interceptor sewer that runs through pretty much the center of town on the way to the wastewater plant. That's in poor condition as well. So the crux of this project is to upgrade the 2 Cent Road lift station and make it so that instead of pumping to the Baldwin Street lift station, which in turn pumps to the 14-inch interceptor in town, which in turn gets pumped from the main wastewater plant lift station to the treatment plant, we're going to make that pump just directly to the treatment plant and bypass all those other pieces of infrastructure. So that kind of does 2 things. It opens up capacity on the east side of town, as well as preserving capacity in the rest of those, in the Baldwin Street to a certain extent, the 14-inch interceptor sewer and the main lift station or the main wastewater plant interceptor sewer. There's a couple of other kind of ancillary improvements to the Country Meadows and Pheasant Point lift stations. Those lift stations currently pump to the State Road 135 lift station, which I'll get to in a second. State Road 135 in turn pumps to the 14-inch, which in turn goes to the main wastewater plant and is pumped again. So the improvements to the Country Meadows and Pheasant Point lift stations would be such that they would pump directly into the force main of the 2 Cent Road lift station, and then all that flow would go straight to the wastewater treatment plant. So that kind of, it sets 2 Cent Road up to be a regional lift station for the south and east part of the town. And it sets up Country Meadows and Pheasant Point to pump as efficiently as they can. Now, the State Road 135 lift station, that's been on the target list for quite some time because it's in very poor condition. It's also close enough to 2 Cent Road that it appears that the service area there can gravity flow from 135 to 2 Cent Road, and that I believe is going to be part of the Commerce Grove. Is that the name of the development?
Yeah.
The one at 2 Cent Road and 135. Yeah, it appears that work would be done separately from this as part of that developer's work. That makes sense.
We'll go into this new.
It will go into the new 2 Cent Road or to the upgraded 2 Cent Road lift station, but it won't. There's nothing in our work involved with that. That would be on the developer. We would review it and that sort of thing. But
Now, what would that mean for, let's say, the corners of 144 and 135 in terms of their future growth? If that is to redevelop, are we setting ourselves up for an ability to flow down to the south through that same line, or have we looked at it that way?
so I think, if I recall, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but if I recall correctly, 144 is kind of the boundary of the State Road 135 lift station. So I think generally south of 130 or 144, you would flow by gravity into 2 Cent Road. I think north, it either flows by gravity into, you've got the 3-notch lift station up there, and you've got the 14-inch interceptor sewer. I don't recall north of 144 where everything.
Right, but everything south of there, the south corners. southwest,
Yeah,
southeast,
right.
And then all the property basically to the south now are all capable of being developed without major, if we do this.
Yeah, right.
This allows for some pretty big expansion in terms of 2 Cent in that industrial area.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So we're sizing it so that you don't have.
Right. You don't want to come back in 4 years and have
You don't
to
wanna
expand it again.
And I think that's an area that's been identified for potential future growth and commercial activity. So we want to make sure we're
Right.
setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah. Yeah, and yes, I believe that to be the case. It's been a while since I've looked at the 2 Cent Road service area, but certainly we don't want to paint you into a corner with respect to that. And we don't want to do improvements and then have to come back in a short period of time to do them again. I will say that even some of the road or some of the development that's been talked about on Honey Creek Road, for example, I mean, it's somewhat very early as I understand, but just even conceptually serving that, it appears that going through 2 Cent Road might make the most sense for them. So just because we've got the 14-inch interceptor sewer is too small to handle a significant amount of development there. And so at least in the short run, running that to an interceptor, a sewer at 135 and 144 there, and then gravitating it to 2 Cent Road, at least preliminarily appears to be the most efficient way to do that. So.
And this would be reimbursable out of the bond, design fees.
You wanted to get started on it. And this was in your capital. This isn't like something that you just came up with yesterday.
Didn't dream.
No, and all these improvements, I think we've identified just right below $4 million. These improvements. Now that we've got a developer that's looking at the area and is going to participate, that'll help on that dollar figure.
One thing that, I'm sorry, just real quick, one thing Kevin had mentioned, he had mentioned a local firm doing the survey and land acquisition services. You will also have another firm doing the soil borings and that sort of thing. So you'll be coming, at some point, he'll be coming back probably in the next few weeks with that. So.
I'll make a motion to approve Strand for $258,000 for the engineering services of 2 Cent Road Lift Station and improvements and not to exceed. Sorry.
I have a motion by Mrs. Wall.
Second.
I have a second by Mrs. Moore. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Thank you.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, last, Rick Raw is here. Rick is going to talk about some mapping software that we'd like to purchase that'll help out with GIS and mapping our service area in our town. I've got, yes. If you scroll through here.
We're making a request for a near map service. It's an aerial imagery service. Right now, one of the issues we're running into is things like Google Maps. If you go on there and you look at Bargersville, there's several subdivisions that are not on that aerial. Part of that reason is they do not update those aerials on a monthly, 6-month, or a year basis. It's usually a year and a half to 2 years. The county provides to us free at the end of every year, a aerial update. Again, we're growing at a rate that is not covering the subdivisions, the roadways that are coming in, the individual houses that are being built outside subdivisions. Near map flies twice a year. It's at a 3-inch resolution, which gives us more accuracy than even what the county is currently collecting, which is 6-inch. To demonstrate what the difference would be, you can see a car and you can kind of make out that it's a car or a truck in 6-inch. In 3-inch, you can probably come close to telling what model it is. It's very accurate. With that, we also get 3D imagery, which we're not utilizing, but could be used for presentations, some documentation just to get a feel for how an area would look. We can actually construct buildings, get a view shed idea of what's going on using some of that data.
Kevin, do we have a pie chart? Do you have it in your budget?
Yes, this would come out of software,
And there's
IT.
plenty, I don't have the pie.
So we have our
That's
own,
okay.
does this work well with Beacon, or is this would this be a separate link or a separate?
This is a separate system, but it actually is designed to integrate with our ArcGIS system. So like all our mapping online, we would actually be able to pull in those aerials. And that's one of the big things for the field guys is they'll go out and we have the information in GIS and they're looking at our documentation, but they can't place exactly where they're at because they can't see a building. This will hopefully help with some of that.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve $8,500 for near map for the IT department.
Motion by Ms. Wells,
Second.
second by Mr. Greenwood. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any board updates? Anybody?
No ball.
No, I've got them on the
Move
next
to adjourn.
agenda.
Second.
Thank you.
We're thinking about, right, it looks like it's gonna